is Chris Daddy. Here. Rich Gussenberg.
Here.
Sean Kimball. Here. Chuck Neth.
Here.
Dennis Rio.
Here.
Megan Rockwell.
Here.
Greg Rosenblatt.
Here.
Jeff Solon, I'm here. And Sarah Stevens.
Here.
Okay. Could we please stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Any discussion on the nominee? Okay, so the motion is that Rich Gussenberg be named chairman, in some parlances known as president of the Cheshire School Building Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Congratulations, Rich.
Thank you very much.
And thank you.
I guess.
Yeah, careful what you ask for, right? No, we appreciate you stepping up and appreciate all your experience and flexibility, time that you can commit to this. So that's great. In that case, I will pass it off to you to take motions for vice chair and for secretary.
All right. Do we have anyone who wishes to express an interest in becoming the vice chair?
As ex officio members, Sean and I are not eligible to hold those roles.
He says with a smile.
We have other roles that we have.
What are the duties of the vice chair? Other than step in when you're not available, or?
That and the fact that, if we end up with a lot of things to do, we will probably share some of the responsibilities as we move along. So, it'll evolve, I think, as it goes.
I can volunteer.
We have-
Put myself out, again, I recently retired, have the time and the interest to do it.
So
Thank you.
Greg has put his name forward. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. And do we have any other nominations? Any others? Okay, if that's the case. All those in favor of Greg as vice chair?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay, wonderful. Unanimous. This group is working well.
Yeah.
Secretary. Now, as far as we can tell, the role of the secretary will not be taking all the minutes of the meetings, but would be to go over the minutes each time. If there's any correspondence that comes in, having that correspondence, sharing that with the committee at the meetings. I don't know if there's anything else that the secretary.
Well, I also want to allay some potential concern about the involvement in these roles, and that you know you might be on some sort of proverbial island in any of these positions. And I want to assure you that Vin and myself, and I know Sean too, but certainly we will avail ourselves in particularly in the role of secretary to review the minutes carefully. Jeff, Attorney D'Onofrio, will play a role in that process too, I'm sure. So you're not signing your life away when you agree to be secretary. In the minutes, those will be pretty thoroughly vetted, obviously, before we put anything before the committee.
And I'm sure they'll be very accurate anyway.
Really hope so.
May I ask a further question about the secretary role? So something that I'm interested in helping the committee with is making sure we get the word out about what happens at our meetings. Anyone who doesn't come, is that the posting of the minutes and things like that? Is that something that comes under?
Well, the town will automatically post the minutes and potentially post a video of our meetings.
Perfect.
Down the line, if we want to do something further in terms of communicating, we may want to set up a subcommittee or something like that, set up a Facebook page to put things on. But that's a decision for us to make as we go forward. That wouldn't automatically, you wouldn't become the communication director for the group. I mean, that could be a big job.
Absolutely.
Are you volunteering?
I can volunteer to be secretary.
Okay, we have a second. In a very quick second. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? No? If that's the case, then all those in favor of Sarah for secretary?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right,
This edition of Drag to the Altar is now ended.
there we go. It says approval of minutes, but I did not see the minutes from the last meeting.
I saw minutes from the
There.
meeting you guys had for the site visit, but I didn't see the.
No,
We haven't
December
received the
5th
minutes, have we?
It's the minutes from December 5th, which should be in
It's PDF.
the folder.
They're on the town website also.
Yeah, they're in the folder under SBC reference documents. Given that people haven't had a chance to review those and we've just named officers, you may want to consider taking a motion to table that.
We can table, although I did notice one typo in my bio.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to correct that now or wait till it's
We'll
formally.
do it when we bring up the minutes at the meeting.
So if you want to send
Yeah,
it, we
it's
can.
Wigan, not Wiggins.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, we
comes
got
off.
Dana.
Yeah.
Has everybody read over the minutes? I have not. No.
I have
Then- Then do I have a motion to table the minutes until the next meeting?
So
So moved. Seconded?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Chuck and Sarah,
Okay.
motion and second. All in favor.
Do we also have minutes for the visitation to the site?
I saw those.
Yeah, there was-
Yes, they're also in the same folder.
Okay.
So that wasn't on the agenda though, so we can put both of those items on the next
On
agenda.
the next, yeah. And now maybe I should be looking to see if things like that are popping up, but
Typically I email you. I can't remember if I indicated if that was in there or not,
Yeah.
but I'll definitely.
somehow we'll have to make
Yeah,
sure. I assume that.
No, I should definitely make sure that you guys are notified when they go in there.
Okay, so we'll put those both on for the next meeting. Review approval of requests for qualifications. Let's take the architect one first.
And given that this is a working meeting, I don't know if people want to spend a little time going through them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just take some time right now to review that before we go into discussion.
So I guess my first question, Jeff, these came from you or these came from?
So Attorney D'Onofrio provided a template
Okay,
to us, which then tried to update. I updated, passed them on to Sean. In no way are these distribution ready as of today. There's still very much draft format to try and nail down 3 substantial documents in time to get them to you today. So, we would encourage you to try and review them again. And, I know several of you already looked at them, but let's give another review before we move anything
So
forward.
the architect one that we have says Norton Elementary. I assume there
Right.
would be 2 that would be
Well,
identical for the 2
If we
different
could,
schools.
if you're comfortable asking Jeff, I know we talked a little bit about 2. They're 2 separate projects, and if you want to ask him to clarify if that's indeed the case, or if we're safe going 1, I don't know.
Well, you should do 1 RFQ per professional scope, because if you're gonna do an RFQ for a professional for both schools, it's gonna get confusing to potential respondents. Some will think that they're gonna be the architect for both schools if they're selected. Others will think that if they don't wanna do both schools, then they shouldn't respond.
So we would do 2 RFQs, 1 for Norton, 1 for the North School.
Yeah.
And then potentially you could have 1 large architectural firm that you hired for both, or you could end up hiring 2 different architects.
Yeah, that's something you deal with in the RFP stage.
Okay,
Right now, you're just looking for qualifications.
all right.
Do you, in your professional experience, Jeff, do we need to articulate in that RFQ that you could submit 1 for both schools, or?
It doesn't hurt,
Okay.
you know, you're not getting a proposal. for it.
I'd rather, if we're gonna keep them separate, let's keep them separate so as not to confuse the respondents.
But if you, in the, I think what Jeff was just saying, in the RFQ phase, if we're, we are putting out 2,
Right,
but if you are the same firm, you don't have to submit 2 separate RFQ packages of all the same
It'd be
documents.
exactly the same, yeah.
Why wouldn't you have to do that? So
Yeah.
it wouldn't meet the RFQ then, right?
Why not?
Wouldn't you just
it's the
copy
same,
paste the same stuff?
the same response, but then
It's fine.
The issue is that in order to be considered for the RFP phase on the project, they need to submit a response to the RFQ. If they want to submit the same response and just change the names, that's fine. But we don't have the ability to issue 2 RFQs and tell somebody you only have to respond to 1.
Okay, all right, so that's clarifying.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
all
they
I'm saying.
would submit 2 then.
Yeah.
So I think the best thing would be for us to go page by page through this, take a look at it, and if we have any issues or questions as we go along. So looking at the cover page, any questions or issues there?
yeah, I would suggest removing the word design,
I'm sorry,
removing the word design,
design?
because that implies the first half of the project only. You're also doing construction administration.
Any issue there,
You want
Jeff?
to add a live? Is that what?
Okay. In general, can we have like on a document like this, can we just have it where we make our comments and stuff and it shows up with like your,
On
like
front
a bubble
pages.
that,
Yeah, we
I
can
was,
do
I would
that.
love it if you did that. Redline it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sean's pulling something up right now, which should assist us in that process.
Ooh,
we can cast to the TV, right?
You prefer to watch the Smurfs, I guess that's.
I thought that's what we were gonna.
So right at the top, Sean, it was suggested to remove the word design versus architectural engineering.
So if I do this, it'll be my edit.
No, it won't show your edit. You have to.
You have to change it to
Track changes.
suggesting mode.
See where the pencil is?
Here.
No, keep going to the right. It's a drop down.
Oh.
Yeah, and then
Suggesting.
suggesting.
Now let me suggest.
Moving forward, we're
Starting
suggesting.
now.
Now you gotta put design back in,
And then delete it.
then cross it out.
Well, if you hit the arrow up above,
Well, you don't suggest that
Yeah.
that's
No, on the
unsuggested,
left
put it
hand.
back in.
Suggest
That's
it, yeah,
suggested
yeah.
goes.
I'm not sitting down here anymore.
Yeah, what do you guys want for breakfast?
moving right along,
All right,
we've
now
changed
let's
a
highlight.
word.
Now delete.
Now we're
Now we
still suggesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now
I just delete design. I would
we go.
Ah, all right. Any other suggestions on? And if you have any objections to a suggestion, make sure you say that.
Rich, can I just add a couple of things for the
Yes.
committee? So you'll see that in all the RFQs, there's gonna be a number that's assigned 2023 XX. We do that
Yeah.
when the document's finished. On that second page, that ad, I mean, you could wordsmith it, but you'll see those are very common. This whole document has a lot of commonality. The pages that are really critical are when you get to the project description and scope and all those services.
Okay.
So we'll handle those, you know, itty bitty details. You just stick with the big words.
All right,
That's the more
good.
important thing for the
All right. Page 2, anything there?
You gotta get rid of design everywhere, Sean.
Okay. All right. Throughout the,
If you want to share the document, I can do it as we go along. Doesn't matter.
I think it's shared.
Or
And,
give me
yeah,
any-
I'll give you editing access, Chuck.
I sent a request. I said, please.
Oh, all right.
I proposed dates, by the way, so that these are due February 10th. And on one of the pages, as we go further along, you'll see there's a whole series of dates. So I'm assuming that if we issue January 16th, then these dates should work, but that's certainly something the committee can think about.
Yeah.
And if we're doing multiple RFQs, of doing architects and owner's rep and construction manager services, just think about how much work.
Right, I think
It
that's,
will be.
yeah, that's something
That's
we need
gonna
to
be a
discuss
question.
as we go along. I think we definitely want to get the 2 RFQs out for the architect, and then we'll talk about, you know, the timeline for the owner's rep.
Does the RFQ need to be approved by town council?
Does not.
Okay.
The awarding of the contract.
Page 3,
I think the word not is missing in the 4th line, including but not limited to. And it's in the other one also.
study was comprehensive and include all relevant factors, including.
All relevant facts, including, but I think it's
Yep,
not
yep,
limited
yep.
to.
Not limited to showing all the program, okay.
It's in the other RFQ.
Oh,
Same
yeah,
boilerplate.
yeah.
All right, next page, page 4.
So I have a general question on this. I had some comments about the educational specifications. And I understand there's a point where we can discuss that with the design professional, but everything now is based on that. Is that a concern at all? The fact that we may as a group say, you know what, we want 5 less classrooms and make them bigger. We don't want a gym or some, whatever it may be that we might want to change that we don't know about. Is that a problem at this stage in the game? To
Yeah,
be referencing a document that we haven't ratified?
the
No, because
state
the
wants-
board ratified that document and submitted it to the state for the approval process. Once we have an architect, we can discuss those things with them and the owner's rep if there are any modifications to be made to that. But that's already been ratified and submitted to the state. It was required to be done before June 30th of this current year.
Because there are items in that that I have,
Questions about, yeah.
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 And so, but that can still be addressed?
Well,
That's my
give you-
understanding
yeah.
from speaking.
I'll give you an
to
example.
the owner's rep.
Farmington is doing a new high school and they went over budget. And so their committee had to go in and make changes to what the plan was in order to keep it in, but then they passed additional funds. But yes, the committee, as we go along, may have to take a look at the ed specs and the plans and all that and make some adjustments depending on finances.
Well, I'm
You're-
saying not only that,
You're
if we-
shaking your head
The
no.
committee has no authority over the ed spec. The ed spec is the Board of Ed document. If the committee wants to make changes or recommend or request changes to the ed spec, the committee can make its request to the Board of Education. Ultimately, it's the Board of Education that decides what's in the ed spec. Your charge is to build what's in the ed spec. If the Board of Ed makes changes and those changes are significant, then you may have to resubmit to the state because the state makes a grant commitment based on an ed spec. can't get the state to say, we're gonna give you X tens of millions of dollars and then, chop 30,000 square feet off the building.
But for instance, when we were in South Windsor, their enrollment went up, so they added classrooms. But I don't know what process they went through. I assume their Board of Ed must have approved that and then brought it back to the state and said.
Yeah, any material change to the ed spec has to come through the Board of Ed.
I mean, that's classrooms and stuff. There are open-ended components to the ed spec, such as like, $1 million for environmentally responsive, infrastructure, or electric vehicle infrastructure, things like that are very open-ended, which I believe, per my conversation with Colliers, that there's more latitude there for us to address these things.
So there are some things that are not open-ended, that are an absolute. And I'm just, from my narrow vision of my experience, are likely not going to get into design anyway. And if we already see something that's gold-plated, why would we want to be reactionary and wait till some domino falls 8 months from now, instead of, I guess, asking the question of the Board of Ed now, if that answers one part of the question. Because if truly some of those things are, no, this really is important, and here's the reason why. Okay, Chris, shut up. That's good. I'm glad I raised the point, but now I'm better off for learning about it. But there are some things that I saw that I thought were, I can give examples. We're just talking hypotheticals right now, but this maybe isn't the place to bring up specific examples, but I saw some things that I thought may not be practical for an elementary school.
So, I would think that the owner's rep would probably weigh in on that as well, in terms of what is appropriate in terms of the design. Jeff, any experience with that?
Well, of course, the architect is going to give you a schematic design, and the construction manager is going to give you a schematic design cost estimate. That's going to be your first cost estimate, right? Because right now, everything is conceptual. You have no design of any project. So once you get that schematic design, you get that schematic design estimate, you'll engage in your first round of value engineering. And if there's concerns about the ed spec, you don't want to do it multiple times. In other words, you don't want to go back to the Board of Ed and ask to have that ed spec changed multiple times, because if you have it changed multiple times, you're increasing the likelihood that you have to resubmit to the state. Okay? So, really, once you have a schematic design, then that's the time to really say, okay, we have a schematic design cost estimate. We're running typically at each level of design, you'll see the budget growing, right? Because you have more detail. So after you get the design development cost estimate, you're constantly playing this whack-a-mole game, right? But if you have issues with the ed spec, and those issues translate into what you deem to be unnecessary cost, then once you get that schematic design and you get that schematic design cost estimate, it's time to have that conversation with the Board of Ed and say, look, we're $3 million over budget based on schematic design. Here's some issues that we have with the ed spec. Would you be willing to consider making some changes to the ed spec to accommodate it?
My only concern is that some of the issues I'm seeing are more granular than you'll see in a schematic design. They're not going to make it to the schematic design level. Maybe they will. That's fine. That's the process. I'm here to ask the process, not invent it. Yeah, but we are referencing it, and I know from experience that ed spec gets referenced all through construction and all that. People, well, it was in the ed spec. That's why so if there is something that whoever the right people are to think that, maybe there was a refinement, or maybe there was something gold-plated that didn't need to be gold-plated, for instance, or whatever. Maybe now up front is the time. But because I see it in here, it's already triggering that.
Yeah.
Boy, that ed spec.
Well, it's been approved by the board, by the town, by the.
It sounds like the time to do that is is once we get together with the engineering and architectural phase and evaluate where we are with everything, to go back once, because obviously, you know, the last thing anybody wants to do is jeopardize the process with the state. So,
But if you'd like, I can put ed specs on a future agenda, just for us to walk through, and if you
Yeah,
want to identify any specific areas of question or
If that's
concern.
appropriate to do, or maybe we just wait, I mean, I'm not gonna forget it, so when the time comes that we're
yeah.
talking with, once we get it, it sounds like you're saying, once we have a design team on board, contract signed, maybe we sit down with them, you know, almost like a
Yeah,
kickoff with them.
absolutely.
Maybe we open up the ed specs or ask them to review it, give us comments, and then we can review it at that point. I don't know if that makes sense, but again, to what Jeff said, if it's not up to us at all, do we even want to ask the Board of Ed if this is something worth?
Well, I don't think we want to do anything along the,
No, I mean,
At this point in time.
if it's an endeavor even worth having.
Right.
Why put it on
I
the
would
agenda?
put it on
for
the
events
agenda
that's
just
no
so
way?
that we're fully familiar with it.
Well, at
And
the
if
very
there's
least,
issues or questions.
maybe there's a question in the RFP interview process where we're asking them about some of those value engineering issues.
Sure.
Right, relative to the ed spec, because they would have reviewed it. And that could be part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Moving along, page 4.
Yeah, under item 3, fifth line, after construction manager. Oops, that's different. Under scope would be the fifth line. So probably in the next page. Well, by construction manager, can we add the words at risk? Because it does make a difference.
Okay.
You go back up to the bottom of page 3. The whole paragraph kind of reads funny.
Were you under the graph there?
Yeah, it's
One of
just
the
in
new
general,
schools?
like the way, like, so there are no structures on the property at present. It's just there are no structures on the property. And then, so the old school will be demolished once the new one is built. It's just the old school.
Yeah,
And then, in general, like, when the two new elementary schools are ready for occupancy in August 2026, the elementary schools will be redistricted. Should it just, like, restate all of the elementary schools are redistricted? It's not just those to balance, like, between the two.
right,
of them.
right.
Is that even
Right.
something relevant to the RFQ?
It just kind of explains what the
It's just a background.
process.
Sure.
And so I can clean that paragraph up, to your point.
All right. We're back to page 5. Under schematic design, I wanted to add a number 4 in there. Working with staff to coordinate the design of the facilities.
No, because they're blank, because the formatting on these were brutal, so we're trying to clean that up. The page breaks that were built, I had to have Carol finally do the one I want today.
Rich, you wanted working with staff.
Yeah, the
Put a note there.
architect will work closely with staff in the design phase.
Something over there.
While you're there, can you go up just a little bit? Jeff, is the architect going to develop the estimate or is the construction manager?
See,
So.
I mean, what I typically would do is, you know, if you were to tell me, hey, we're definitely gonna have the CM on board by the end of the schematic design phase, then I would say that the architect will work with the CM on developing the schematic design cost estimate. I certainly hope that you have the CM on board before the end of the schematic design phase.
So can we delete that last sentence then?
I would like to leave it in there because the ASTM level 2 cost estimate has to get submitted to OSCGR and signed off by the architect. So typically we have the architect work with the CM on it. And sometimes the architect does their own.
So if we didn't have a CM in place, would the architect then have to do it on
Have
their
to,
own?
you have to. You can't move forward with OSCGR without it. You won't be able to go to DD without it.
All right, we okay then? All right,
Starting at number 2 there, Rich. Everywhere it's mentioned, it should be updated to from Cheshire School Building Committee to the Next Generation School Building Committee. And it's already referenced like NGSBC in the first page. So just replace all for that.
okay. So anywhere in the document, make sure that that's consistent.
Yeah, then just in general, there's a couple times where we like it writes out everything again, which I already showed the abbreviation once, so it's just cleaning all that formatting up.
Yeah, definitely the formatting across all 3 docs.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a mad scramble to get all 3 on your plate. So I definitely understand that there are going to be issues there, but I nevertheless appreciate you pointing anything out so that we're sure not to miss it.
Page 6.
Page 6 is blank, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm good with 6.
Yeah, his and mine aren't the same. I don't have all of the blanks. So I'm up to C, bid for phase for construction.
B, page 7 is B.
You have something on B?
That's page 7.
Okay.
PDF doc. Put it Word, right?
Yeah, I'm in Word.
Yeah, because they were in Word and then downloading.
Yeah, I took out all the blanks and everything.
Is there anything else?
So we're on design, development, and construction document phases. B, right?
B, design, development, construction, document phases.
Correct.
Anything there?
What's the sustainable energy option, number 1? On selection of the building design, sustainable energy option, and site design. What's that referring to?
You have to, it falls under the
High
high
performance building
performance
standards,
building.
state law.
Or is that like referenced like somewhere in
Yeah.
the schematic design part?
Architects will know what that is.
Yeah, that's part of the state mandate for school buildings.
Yeah, keep in mind, when we're doing the RFQ, the firms that are responding in order to be deemed qualified to build schools in Connecticut, the actual scope will be in the contract. Okay, the scope is much more elaborate and much more detailed in the contract than it is in the RFQ. So, the RFQ, you're just basically telling them what they already know, plus a little bit about your project.
Okay. Anything else under B? C, bid phase for construction.
Just a general question, the CM is gonna be at risk. So they're holding all the contracts. Why do we want the architect to review the low bidders?
I mean, the architect needs to be involved in the scope reviews.
Right.
Because it's their documents that they're bidding on, right? Typically, we have the whole team involved in reviewing who's the lowest qualified and responsible bidder. Doesn't have to be that way. You know, you can have the owner's rep involved, but you know, it's the architect's specs.
Okay, fair
More,
enough.
more people looking at it, the better off we are.
You also want to avoid this scenario where the architect gets upset because somebody missed something in a scope and said, "Why'd you exclude me from the process?"
General question for you.
Sure.
Similar note. Since we are just asking for, this is just a request for qualifications. Is there any risk to us for anything missed in general? I mean, what is the risk for us? All we're doing is getting qualifications. The next step is asking for the proposals. And then the next step is a contract where I would think there is the risk in the details. But
You could actually do, shouldn't say this out loud, you could actually do like a one-page RFQ and just say, here's the basic qualifications. Minimum 5 schools receiving OSCGR administered grants in the last 5 years that you were the lead designer for, and references.
Gotcha.
There's kind of an expectation in the marketplace that you use this.
Template.
like, I guess what I'm getting at is if we miss a sentence or
You're
miss
not,
a
you're
word,
not, you're
it's no
not,
big
you're
deal.
not, you're
Not at
gonna-
this phase.
You're not gonna miss anything.
Yeah. That's
Trust me, we're not gonna
D,
miss anything.
construction administration.
The firms responding may miss something. And we can talk about ready check and peer review at a later date, but that's down the road.
Nothing under D.
D1, fifth line, after CSVC should be attendance. But that,
Anything else on D? E, other general requirements.
On E, the third and fourth bullet, where it says consultation with town, should be consultation with this committee, with the school building committee. In other words, we wouldn't want people going backdoor to say to planning and zoning, skipping us. You know, should everything go through this committee before it goes to the rest of the town?
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with it. You know, you guys are the public agency of the town that's charged with building this project. So if you want to change that, you know, the only reason I use town there is there'll be town officials, you know, the building department, the fire marshal, the town engineer. There'll be other town officials that they will need to consult with and coordinate with.
Would they consult, in other words, how would we know they consulted with, you know, the fire
They'll
department?
tell you when they come to a meeting and give you a report every meeting. It'll be critical path items for them to get sign off from engineering and building and fire.
Are we okay?
Is that adding red tape then, Jeff? If they have to come to us to then go to somebody else? Or
They-
would you recommend we don't do
They
this?
have to, as a matter of professional responsibility and code.
They have to see those
Yeah,
people,
they don't need
right?
they don't need your authority to do any of those things. It's
Yeah.
gonna- the contract's gonna legally obligate them to
Yeah.
do those things.
So we're safe, you know, putting NG, CS, BC there.
You could,
As
yeah,
opposed-
I mean, you know, you can put whatever you want there. It's not,
All right.
it's not gonna ultimately change their responsibility.
Okay.
Anything else on E?
just
Time
as
reports.
on the last bullet, there are different levels of BIM depending on what the town is gonna use.
Yeah, I don't know what level of BIM is gonna get used on this project.
300.
What is BIM? I don't know.
So it's a building information management
Modeling,
modeling.
yeah.
So it's basically a 3D software that all the consultants will be working on.
So you have coordinated design.
But it you can use it at different levels. So the first level is basically for schematic design, second 200 to 300, 700, which is the highest, is something that the town would use, the town maintenance people would use to basically push a button and find out that air handling unit 5 is not working. So there's different gradations of how complex you want to do it. The more complex you do it, the more expensive it is for the architects to basically create it. So I'm okay leaving it that way, but I will listen to questions.
It's something to talk about in an interview.
Okay.
I think 300, you're probably right. I don't know on the BMS side for Board of Ed. I have no idea what kind of management system you have for your facilities.
We have a good management system. Not all of our controls are necessarily updated. But, we have Niagara, Tritium. I mean, can do a lot more than our controls can do.
All right, 4, timeline.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Sure.
I think this is a pretty aggressive timeline, but note that it's going to take them up until March 15th to get through this. So just put that out there.
Yeah, that was kind of, can we find a way to expedite it? Because after March 15th, we still have to go to town council. So that's another 2 weeks.
You guys can meet every day as far as I'm concerned after those come in, but I think it's a practical question. How often can committee or subcommittee meet?
I don't think it's realistic to get an RFP on the 8th and have the selection and everything by the 15th. That's a week's time.
Super
But by the same token, I don't think that we can give them 3 weeks to do their applications package.
Was there like a legal time frame you have to have it advertised for to get an RFQ, like
No.
for the chart?
No.
If we shorten that period, though, that'll reduce the number of people that'll probably,
Well, we're also working on the school district budget 2 nights a week, the entire month of January.
That's not why I said.
And the issues that come with it, but Vin, in terms of releasing it a week earlier than the 16th to slide the timeline, is that?
You could do that. You could use, the 9th and it moves everything back a week.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how quickly the committee was going to get.
well, if we approve this today, it's, ready to go right after the
Then you
holidays.
pick up a week.
So,
But I agree with Chuck. I mean, RFP due on the 8th and then selection on the 15th. That's really,
so if we play with some dates, I mean, at least buy that extra week there, shorten or bump up the release a week earlier, shorten that 3-week window to 2 weeks on the RFQ, and then add that time into the, or you can add that time into the,
Well, right now, I think the RFQs, it was 4 weeks, right? It was the 16th to the February
Yeah.
10th. I think if you shorten it up to the 9th, January 9th,
yeah.
and then
that's
still
what-
shorten up February 10th.
Yeah, pull that out of that, pull another week out of that,
Yeah.
and then
that's
add
in
it
January.
someplace else so that we have more time to review.
so you would do a 3-week,
So we got 1/9, and then
Period.
back up 2 weeks from 2/10.
Yeah, to whatever that is, the 26th or something.
So 3rd and the 27th, 1/27 is now the second date. Then review qualifications.
Yeah, so I think the review of the qualifications and the review of the RFP and like the interviews, those are very different timeframes. Like the review of the qualifications should maybe a week's time. We should be able to do that.
Yeah, that's one meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's easy,
in a
yeah.
meeting here, and then the interviews come after that. So
So do we want to back up RFQ a week?
should go ahead and-
So just to be clear too, now, this is just for one school, really. We gotta do another one in parallel. So
Right.
everything is gonna be double. Right?
What is
You're gonna get the same RFQs twice from the same firms.
I agree with
That's
that,
true.
but our interviews, our decision on the four and on who we decide to hire might take more time.
what's the kind of going industry standard for the time between notification that they're qualified and we want a proposal and them
And then interview.
making the proposal, and well, just like preparing the whole proposal?
Oh, for the RFQ?
No,
From the RFQ.
RFP.
RFP?
because we'll say, great, you're qualified, send us an here's the RFP instructions, and then they have to prepare that and interview, like what, that's like a lot.
Anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days.
Okay, I'm just wondering if we say, you've 13 days you have, if we're gonna
Say
seem
1 week.
difficult, and it may,
Dissuade people.
yeah.
If we moved back from the 15th to 2/8 on the review qualifications, because it sounds like we should probably build a little bit more time into the RFP response for them.
I think,
Based on the conversation.
So from the 27th.
Yeah, that's the more important part.
So we got the 9th now for the release of the RFQ, the 27th for the statement of qualifications due to us. We will review that by the February 8th and notify. Notifications of RFP and interview. What sort of timeline do you recommend there?
Well, that review qualifications, statement of qualifications are due on January 27th.
Right.
And then we're notifying on whatever
The
that
8th.
fourth date is. The 8th,
Oh, the notification.
I mean, reviewing, that's gonna take place in between. We almost don't even need that column, or that,
Probably want it on a meeting though, right? Like, so
Yeah.
it kind of depends on whatever the meeting schedule is. So if you did that during the week of the 30th, then your date for that would be the 3rd. Like, just put it as the Friday so you're safe.
So we get them on the 27th, say we meet on Wednesday, February 1st.
Yeah.
We can notify them
We can notify
on the 2nd.
Groundhog Day.
All right, so the 9th, the 27th, the 1st and the 2nd?
No,
February
how-
1st and February 2nd?
no, how are you going to review and notify and,
We review and
That short
then
period.
notify the next day. Because once we've reviewed them, we know who we're notifying. You can notify, was it 4 firms? you
Yes,
said?
for
Up to
up to 4?
So,
Yeah,
the-
that's what I'm saying, is we'd review them at the meeting. Let's say the meeting was the 1st. We review them then.
you
You
can
can
notify.
notify them right after we review them at the meeting. Like, that's when you're gonna,
So you feel that within one meeting, we'll be able to take whatever's, I mean, you could have.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, because
All you're gonna do is vote on who you're sending the RFP to. The RFP is ready to go.
so if you get 20 packages,
You'll
you're gonna
get,
go through those 20
you'll get
packages,
9 to 11.
9 to 11, and you can pick up to 4 of those and say.
You get 9 to 11. 3 will obviously be totally unqualified. You'll throw those in the garbage.
2 will be overqualified.
Right, so
So-
February 1st, and then you're saying that,
I'd say the 1st, because that look would be middle of the week, and then just put it as the 3rd, because it buys you a day. It's a Friday.
With the
Notify them on a Thursday
notification,
doesn't do anything.
the notification.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go 2-3 on that. And then RFP due and interview of selected firms.
how much time you said they need? 2 to 3
Is-
weeks?
I'd give them 15 days at least.
So the 17th, that's 2 weeks.
No, yeah. So if we're talking about the 3rd, the 17th, do we want to do the 24th to
Well-
build additional time?
It should be a meeting date, right? Because that's the day we're doing interviews.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta interview the full.
Are we gonna be able to interview everybody at the same time?
I don't think so.
It's
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
very, very difficult to do 4 in one meeting.
Yeah.
From a
Like 4
scheduling
hours.
perspective,
It's gonna be like 4 hours.
right,
If we do two,
because you
Two at
gotta
a time.
score them.
right, so that would be 2 nights per school.
You'll spend an hour and a half per interviewee.
Does the entire committee do each interview, or can we break up 2 people per firm?
The same people need to be in every interview, otherwise the process is flawed.
Committee this small, I think this is a huge decision. I would sort of like to have everyone involved with it.
I mean,
Is the RFP doing the interview dates the same?
and that, well, that's a question I have, and then can we just, I would,
Should not be. You need to
right?
look at those, you need to look at those responses
Yeah.
before you do
no,
the
it's-
interview.
Right.
We had,
So if you've got,
in that case, it doesn't matter when they're due. It
Yeah,
doesn't
so-
have to be a meeting date or anything like that.
so 2 weeks for the RFPs to come in.
So they're doing the 17th.
Can we make, let's push that out a little bit, because there's also, what's the holiday in there? Is that the 20th is President's Day?
Oh,
Yeah, the 20th.
I mean,
Give them
Yeah,
till the
that's
22nd.
yeah, let's go 22nd.
Yeah, if you do the following week and then you do the interviews in the week of the 27th, and then you can select it after that.
And then, yeah, can we just say RFP due,
Yeah, let's take,
2/22, interviews week of 2/27,
Yep.
something like that?
yeah,
Yeah.
divide that off into a separate line.
So we haven't really gained anything.
Well,
Yeah,
we
we
make it a
move
week.
from March 8th to
You
2/27.
gained a week in a more realistic schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if that was, made a lot of sense.
Don't be sorry. I put something out there for you guys to pick apart.
I think that.
Yeah, you did a good job, Chuck.
Nailed it.
All right.
More realistic.
Yeah,
And we
RFPs
pick up-
due February 22nd. Interviews would be then the next week, the week of the 27th.
And I think all these dates right now are perhaps a bit tentative until we get to the next agenda item when we identify what days of the week we're meeting on.
So then recommendation to the council would be the week of March 6th, assuming we can do all the interviews in 1 week.
Yeah, so that
What's
backs
the
us up
meeting
a week.
schedule in March, Sean? Do you know that?
It's every week because it's budget.
Budget.
It's every, but the regular meeting is the 14th.
All right, so,
But we'll have meetings 3 nights a week.
So if we make our decision by March 6th, then we can get it to the town council.
We often have things.
For the 15th.
yeah. Just want to make sure.
But yeah, I mean-
Realistically, how many days are we gonna need? We're gonna have a regular meeting to go through a normal agenda and whatever we wanna discuss. Then we're gonna have interviews that are scheduled. Then we're gonna have they're gonna make their presentation, then we ask our questions, then we have to take our notes and all that. At some point, we're gonna have to reconvene and go over that. And if you're talking an hour, hour and a half each one, you're looking 3-4 meetings, I'm thinking.
It's gonna be a while on that.
And for 2 schools.
Well, keep in mind, until you hire the architect, you really don't have a heck of a lot to talk about.
Right.
That is the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, we may not do 4 architects for each school. We may have overlap.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's, the maximum is you would be interviewing 8, but we may not choose to do 8.
Sure.
We may have, 2 and 2 or 3 and 3.
But we could say, like a drop dead date for notification to the council March 10th. Like we're gunning for that date.
Yeah.
Because they have to post it on the agenda for the 14th.
Friday, March.
If we can shoot for that, there's not a next gen school building committee police that's gonna arrest us, but if we could try and nail down for the 10th notification to.
And Jeff, when do we have to have this up to the state? The timeline for the state is the architect has to have certain information by when?
Well, there's no deadline.
Okay.
You're on the clock. You got your grant application submitted. Hey, you're on the priority list. That came out last Thursday.
Okay.
It's the largest priority list I've seen in about 15 years, over $1 billion. Of course, 300 million of it's one school. West Hill High School, which got approved last year at 240 million, went back for reauthorization because of inflation. It's now at over 300 million.
So if perchance we miss this deadline, it's not a disaster.
It's your
just-
deadline.
It's our deadline.
Right.
It makes our finishing the school on time that much harder.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, how we looking? All set?
Take ones?
Okay. Moving right along. 5, submission of qualification statements.
Number 3, I was wondering if we wanted to put a time frame in there or if it doesn't matter.
I have the same comment.
You know, if their relevant experience was in 1995, may not be.
Relevant.
So for me, within
Well,
the
it is.
10 years?
last 10 years.
I agree.
Over the past 10 years at the end of that first sentence.
The other thing that I would suggest that actually was in the construction manager submission requirements is give them a limit as to how long each one can be.
What number is that?
Roman numeral 5,
Number
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
6, 7, 8. All of them should have a limit of how many pages.
Length of
Statement.
that,
Of the actual material.
just so we don't get overwhelmed with
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
where it says the firm company shall provide a brief summary, like provide a one-page, a summary of no more than one page.
You don't want a
something like that.
150-page document.
1 page maximum, company information, 2
Yeah,
pages
yeah,
maximum. If you follow the one on the construction manager,
Okay,
it's the same for
okay. That's
The reason I don't have it in the architect is I like reading what the architects write.
God bless you.
Architects are creative folks. The construction managers go on and on and on about it.
Number 7, I was just curious, are we good with 3? Do we want to call more? Do we even have time to call 3? I just wanted to discuss to see if everybody's cool with 3.
There's no less than 3. They can give us more. Is 3 going to be enough?
What I'm saying is, do we want only 3 if somebody decides to go
I always like having 3 because there's a tie break, and so you get maybe 1-4. Although they're never going to give you someone who's going to give a bad
Right,
reference,
they're all gonna be good references.
Are we making the assumption that those references are from different projects? I mean, I don't want 3 from the same project that we've been working
Right.
with.
So how about list 3 client references from each from different projects.
The past 8 years with a construction budget in the range of 50 million. And then the item 3, at a minimum, lead design team should have designed and implemented comparably sized building design, approximately 75,000 square feet, for at least 2 other municipalities in Connecticut within the past 8 years. So the idea is that the references come from those, so if you want to cross-reference, that's fine.
So there's potential 5 references there, 3 school and 2 other.
No, I mean, again, the idea is that they give you references for those same they always do.
Right.
There's a few CMs that have very large portfolios. They give you everything. No matter what you ask for, they'll give you every school. If they built a football field, they'll give you that as a school construction project, no matter what we put in here. But the architects tend to be more responsive. So if you want to specify different number of references or a different time period, you're likely to get more responsive statements of qualifications from the architects, the more specific you are.
Is the intent with number 3 to not have schools? Because it doesn't say schools, but the one above it does.
No, it should be schools.
So 3 should also say school building project?
Sure.
Okay, we'll make that add.
That's number 6, Roman numeral 6.
Yes, shall.
School projects.
On page 13, Sean.
On page
So,
13.
yeah, Roman numeral 6, number
Oh,
3.
well, before you go there, just, there's a typo in item 7.
Under the references.
Yeah, that should be home.
Also in that section on 8 and 10, the default in litigation. 8, it says you, 10, it says your firm. Should both of them say you and any member of your firm? In other words, if there's somebody that recently joined the firm that maybe had been involved in litigation at the previous firm, would we want to know about that?
You or your firm.
You
I
or
mean,
your firm, yeah.
it's the firm, I mean, the firm has the E&O insurance,
Mhm.
so it's gonna be the firm.
Right, although number 8 says you.
Yeah, you is the respondent.
So in 8, it's just you, not you or your firm, or does it matter?
Well, you is intended to be the respondent,
The individual, not,
the firm.
oh, okay.
We're not gonna get any individuals responding, it'll be all firms.
Mhm.
I added the or your firm for clarification.
Yeah, if you want to clarify that, absolutely.
All right, that's Roman numeral 6. Anything else on 6?
I have one item on the D.
Did we change number 3 on Roman numeral 6?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's school.
No, you had it on the other one, not on the.
Right there.
Not on 6, you had it on 5. So, Roman numeral 6,
The
number
school
3.
piece. Add the school piece, Chris.
Yeah,
Just put school in front of building.
right.
Okay. B,
Is it fair to say too that any school, whether it's high school, elementary, middle school, there's nothing unique about elementary? that we have-
Elementary's
we have to-
easier. If you were building a high school or a middle school, you'd want build middle school or high school, but elementary school.
In terms of construction, do you have any?
if they can do high school, they can do it elementary.
Right.
This one may be not necessary, but number 5, where it says licensed to practice architecture and/or engineering in the state of Connecticut, I mean, that means we could get an engineering firm
Yeah.
that does not have an architect and is not an architect, isn't licensed. Are we okay with that, or do we want to
No,
make sure
we're
we have?
not gonna do that. That's not an option.
So get rid
So
of,
we should take off that and/or engineering.
Say practice, yeah. Practice
say
architecture
architecture.
in the state of Connecticut.
yeah.
Yeah,
the
altogether.
and/or
That's gonna be a
and-
sub to
License to
them.
practice architecture in the state of Connecticut.
And quite honestly, if they do have engineering in-house, it doesn't negate the first part. We definitely want an architect.
All right. Back to B,
Yeah,
Roman
under-
numeral 6B.
Yep, I'd like to add a paragraph.
I'm still on A.
Okay, so go ahead.
Number 8, I would just like to add the Connecticut School Construction Standards and Guidelines on the list, where it says different codes, and it also says, Inc. So, right there.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Chris? School
Right there.
construction guidelines and
Connecticut School Construction Standards and Guidelines. The other thing too is it says Connecticut code. Should that be the Connecticut State Building Code?
So if you're gonna do that, say Connecticut State Building and Fire Codes.
Actually, that's, I was thinking about how to incorporate fire. You're absolutely right. Building and fire codes. Thank you.
Does it say building codes and NFPA in there?
Yeah.
Well, then we can get rid of those.
IBC ones.
You guys are gonna be interested to work with.
Connecticut school construction standards and guidelines. Dennis, you got a B item?
Yeah, the end of B.
Yeah.
If we could add that attendance to the presentation will be required for the lead architect, lead site designer, and lead mechanical and electrical engineers. I don't want to bait and switch.
Just pull that up and I can type it.
Let me repeat that.
I just need a second to get there because I'm gonna type this in. So B.
It's okay. Can you share this with Chuck when you get a chance?
What's that?
I'm watching.
It's good.
I thought I already shared it with you.
This document?
I pressed the button, yeah.
I did.
Let me double check.
He's fast finger Freddy over here. He
Chuck,
thinks he
you
can
may
do
have-
it
yeah,
quicker.
You're in, you just gotta refresh it.
Check refresh your screen. That happened to me too. Refresh it, you're in.
With the lead. And then I just need,
Architect. The lead site designer. And the lead mechanical and electrical engineers.
You can take it.
And you can add assigned to this project.
Maybe we should let you.
refresh it. Okay.
You think so? I don't think so.
So you want to see the whole team?
The team who's gonna be working with us. I don't want to see the
This computer.
vice president of marketing.
You get the eight, or you get the A team, and then the people who show up for the job are, you know,
The D team.
Well,
the clown.
that will be the one question at the interview.
It's a contract provision, no substitutions, team is the team.
All right, C, D, E. Seven, additional information. Eight, general terms and conditions. We're moving right along now. Nine, duties and responsibilities.
That looks a lot like boilerplate.
Yeah, that, all of that stuff. Boilerplate, yeah.
Okay, we all set?
So far out, the boilerplate goes all the way out to the end, right?
So if you're feeling good about it, do we have a motion to approve this as amended?
Make that motion.
Seconded? Somebody second?
One second.
Seconded? Any discussion?
I'd like to review the final amended version and everything when it's fine. It gets all the edits. I mean, there's still a bunch of stuff to change in there, formatting document.
Can we approve it with the proviso that it'll come out to us? Or do you want another meeting in between?
Oh, yeah, we have to approve it ahead of time. When would our next meeting be?
We haven't set a
Kind
schedule.
of the next item on the agenda. Yeah,
Might be
Yeah.
tomorrow.
I got like 5 minutes into this section and thought, geez, we probably should have had the meeting thing first, I guess.
We'll probably just get to see a clean copy after all the edits are in. Is that the sort of thing we can approve electronically?
Well, we can send everything out to the group, and I would say barring substantive change. So if there's a typo, you could send that individually back to me. We'll fix it. If there's a substantive change, I guess we would put that on
We would have to
the
have
next
another meeting.
agenda. Yeah,
I mean, we do-
and the Connecticut law now allows us to have a virtual meeting, so we could do that. We could schedule a very quick meeting to review one of the RFQs, or virtually if necessary. We could put a tentative virtual meeting in tonight if we choose, as we get to the next agenda item. I mean,
It's going on
that
January
piece of
9th,
it
so we-
to just review the cleaned up copies, that should take less than an hour if we wanted to do a virtual in early January.
What I was gonna say though, if you share the edited document, everybody has rights to edit in suggesting mode.
Yeah.
And then one
suggest-
person has to be responsible to just accept the suggestions, and then that becomes the final document.
The problem
Sounds
is,
complicated, Sean?
sorry,
Good.
can't have any meetings by email. So if you
Not
want
by
to send out the final draft and say, if anyone has any issues with this, contact me, but do not reply all. And
Right.
then if you see substantive changes or questions, there needs to be a meeting to discuss those and to be voted upon.
Yeah.
We can't-
Alternatively, we could just set a virtual meeting date for early January and cancel if there is nothing
Sure.
too. I mean, we could do that.
Well, did you have a calendar of upcoming meetings?
No.
Oh,
I
okay.
put out the survey and I have the responses to be
Okay.
reviewed at the next.
Because this is going out on the 9th, we could
Yeah, there's
set up
not-
a meeting,
It's a meeting.
a regular meeting anyway. We're gonna have other things to do with, and just finalize it at that meeting. So, once we finalize, it's done, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
All right, so then we won't take a motion to approve tonight. We'll clean this up, get it out to everyone. We'll set up a meeting for the first week of January.
Yes.
Right.
I think you already took the motion, so you have to take a vote on it.
Did we have a
Yeah, I think
second
we
on it?
reject-
Withdraw the
Second,
motion.
and then we have the discussion.
I'll withdraw the motion.
There you go.
I withdraw the motion.
You withdrew your motion?
There we go.
Never happened.
Okay. All right, so we're all set on this one. Do we want to take on the owner's rep tonight?
Yeah, I would ask that we take on owner's rep if we're gonna hold off on anything, the construction manager perhaps. I think Vin and I both have a real strong interest in trying to get an owner's rep on as soon as possible. If we could. It's-
Are we looking for one owner's rep or one per project?
I would throw that back to Jeff. Do we have to put out an RFQ for each project for an owner's rep?
Same statute.
So yes.
Yep.
And then could we ultimately hire one owner's rep to oversee both if they are?
One firm, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
Okay. So again, we duplicate, and we'd have to send you a duplicate RFQ for the North End project too, because what we just reviewed was Norton. So would be obviously very similar, but we have to review that.
All right, so let's take a look at the owner's rep, RFQ.
One suggestion would be to remove the word construction after owner. Because that implies they're basically a clerk on the books.
any place in here that it doesn't say NGSBC, we'll make that clarification as well, just preemptively.
Background information, we had made a couple of changes.
Yeah, that not has to be inserted here as well, not limited. And Roman numeral 2,
Clean up that same paragraph.
including but not limited, we're fine.
It's just a copy paste of that whole
Yeah.
section.
Pretty much.
Got it.
Yeah, so whatever was changed in the other one, we'll just
Change it.
put it in here.
Yeah, on page 3, the last paragraph, the total project cost to construct the two new schools. The owner's rep is gonna base their fee on the construction cost, not the project cost. So can we insert that in there?
What, I'm sorry, I was trying to give Chuck
No, that's okay.
access to edit this document as well. Do you already have that, Chuck?
No, I gotta ask for it.
Okay, I just sent it to you. I'm sorry, Dennis,
No,
where
that's
were you
okay.
there?
Last paragraph on page 3,
Okay,
total project cost.
yep,
We should also include the construction cost for each school rather than the project cost.
You know, that is part of the addendum, right? There's gonna be 4
I mean, appendix.
appendix to each of these. One is the project budget for each of the schools,
That's fine, yeah.
but we can reference it there as well. So just the construction cost.
owner's rep build their price off the construction budget?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's usually like 3%.
okay, good to know.
Project description, number 3.
Jeff, you're gonna go through and remove construction from OCR.
Yes, yep.
Thank you.
Number 4, scope.
Yeah, under number 2, you can strike out structural engineer, because that will be the purview of the architect.
Strike out what?
Structural engineer.
Oh, okay.
The town has to engage the structural engineer directly.
For the third-party review.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be, instead of structural engineer, it should be third-party threshold review. What number is it?
A2.
A2.
You said third-party threshold reviewer in place of structural engineer,
Correct.
correct?
Number 7 is the nemesis, is the safety and security subcommittee set up somewhere else now.
Yeah,
Number 7,
I will work with the safety and security subcommittee.
which, the Roman numeral
This is
7?
Roman numeral 4A7.
7, yeah.
4A7.
We have not set up a safety and security subcommittee.
But it says to ensure with compliance with Public Act 13.3, which made me believe that we had to have one, or no?
You don't have to have one, but there's gonna be decisions that need to be made during all of the design phases with respect to safety and security aspects, and all of those discussions are gonna need to take place in executive session. And it makes no sense to have the entire committee have to have all those discussions with the consultant hired by the architect for the 13-3 compliance. So eventually, you're probably gonna wanna create a safety and security subcommittee. You don't need anything right now because you don't have an architect.
We just say, change it to say ensure compliance with the public.
Sure. Yeah, don't, my advice to you, don't get all hung up on the RFQ. You're getting a statement of qualifications. Get hung up on the contract, which will go with the RFP, okay? Because you're gonna get responses from a wide range of respondents for the owner's rep. You're gonna get individuals who are retired and want to be a clerk of the works. You're gonna get large construction management firms. You're gonna get owner's rep firms. You're gonna get a lot of responses, more than you will on the CM or the architect, because it's a broad brush that you're painting when you say, I want an owner's rep.
So Chuck, I just
Number
said work to ensure compliance with Public Act 13-3.
We'll work with
the committee.
the committee, and then we'll decide how that committee's structured. Okay. What is CXA?
Commissioning agent.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
CX is always commission.
We had to look it up too, Rich.
Did you? Okay. There'll be lots of times that I will feel like I have no idea what's going on.
World of acronyms.
We can throw a lot of education jargon out there too. Don't we?
Yeah, I haven't gotten down to the timeline yet. So. Okay, whenever you're ready, I'm on the timeline. And I don't know that we can do this at the same time that we're doing the architect.
No, I think there's gonna be like a 1 week.
It does be a lag.
Nothing for the owner's rep to do yet.
What?
There's nothing for the owner's rep to do yet. I can't think of one thing. If you had an owner's rep right now, what would you ask them to do?
Pick an architect.
That's exactly what I would do.
Yeah, that's about
That was the
it.
idea.
You'd help them to judge.
So would you do the start date when you complete the architect selection process?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because I mean,
If
it's
you all
gonna,
set it by a week or two, that's probably fine.
yeah, it's gonna be tight.
It's just hard to go through that with the interview process, right? Like, even a week or two. Or I think we're okay with that, or
Well,
because we get the documents in, are
can
we?
we jump out of
doing
sequence in the agenda?
We would have to have a motion. Yes, you could do that, absolutely, and it may not hurt to do that,
Yeah.
given the conversation.
Make a motion to go to the next item in the agenda before we make a motion on the,
Is there a second to that? Any discussion? I'll go on to the next item.
What are we doing now? We're going to the calendar?
Yeah, I
Is that
think it
the
makes
purpose?
sense, because we kind of committed to a schedule for the architect. And before we commit to a schedule for the owner's rep, just to see how deep we
Yeah.
are in the
Schedule
weeds.
of meetings. Okay, so we have a motion to table this and to go to the next item on the agenda so that we can determine our calendar of meetings. So, you seconded that?
Yes.
All those in favor? All right. Meeting schedule.
In your folder, under SBC reference documents, there's a meeting schedule Excel sheet that is basically reflective of the responses I received for the survey. And I converted each response to a numerical value that represents the highest number of points were awarded to your first selection, 6 points of the 6 selections. Then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. One of the Tuesdays I had to delete because it's a direct conflict with town council meetings. So of the remainder, here's what we have left.
Okay, I'm not finding that document.
Yeah, but it's
It's under
Building
SBC
committee
reference
membership.
document, you said.
Then building committee membership. And
Oh, it's
then-
under building committee membership?
And then it's school building committee. meeting
Ah,
schedule.
thanks.
We don't even really have much to look at.
I'm used to like frantic
Decoding,
clicking,
yeah.
frantic clicking through Google Drive is my specialty.
That's funny. Yeah, and Sean has it on the board too. So you can see if there was a 6, that meant that it was the highest choice. If there was a 1, it was the lowest choice.
Greg's not available on Mondays.
Yeah, Mondays
You
are,
know, So I'm not sure we want to go about it knowing one person's not going to be here for the whole time.
so that eliminates D and E. So first and third Wednesday, second and fourth Wednesday, first, second, third, and fourth Wednesday.
Well, it
It
looks
might
like
come-
Second and fourth Wednesday didn't have
anyone.
any 1s. It's
Which-
better than.
It's only because you couldn't use the same number twice.
So you could actually cross my numbers off because any day it was all the same to me. I just couldn't do that, so I just did 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So then that would raise the value of.
It was my preference, but it really doesn't matter. We're all going to be just as good or bad, so really.
So
Just revise results.
Wednesdays were like the worst.
so Wednesdays are what?
The worst for me.
The worst for you, okay.
They're the worst for me too, but, I'll certainly do everything I can to be at every meeting, but, we have to miss a couple of Wednesdays between now and.
Well, if Mondays don't work, if Wednesdays aren't great,
And Monday's only through the end of April. The rest of
Okay.
the year, Monday's fine.
And my
Is there-
Wednesdays are only bad.
is there anyone has any
Through, like,
particular issues on Thursdays? Can we agree on the second and
Sarah,
fourth
you had
Thursday
a
of the
1
month?
on the.
Yeah, but you know what? The second and fourth is okay because I was thinking about the first Thursday. So it's fine.
Then we're first and third Thursday. Right?
Typically, yeah.
So
So second
that
and
would work
fourth
for me
Thursday?
too.
Yeah, as long as it's not. We're always going to be meeting in the evening time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do teach on Thursdays, but it's fine.
Second and fourth.
Yeah, during the daytime.
Do we have a motion then to set up a calendar of second and fourth Thursday of each month.
I'll make a motion.
Seconded? Seconded? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, so second and fourth Thursday.
Doesn't that feel better that we have the days?
Yeah.
And now we can.
So much for this method,
So
but
we'll
hey,
put
at
together a
least we have
calendar and get
something.
that out to you.
Who thinks the next part is gonna be easy now? Would you like to
Yeah,
say
now
that?
it's a piece of cake. We
Who
just
thinks that's
just
gonna be?
plug it in, right?
Yeah, we'll send you a meeting invite.
All right, with that said, just do we have a motion to take from the table the RFQ for the owner's rep?
I'll motion that.
I'll say.
And second, all those in favor? All right, so we're back there. Second and fourth Thursdays of the month, we have meetings based on that. And we want to push this so that it's essentially, we're interviewing this after we're done interviewing the architects.
But we'll release the qualifications, the request for qualifications at the same time as we're interviewing architects. So that way when we're finished interviewing architects, we could then start interviewing these folks, owners reps.
I think that's the idea.
Great,
We'll go from one right into the other.
beautiful.
So we're not gonna issue this RFQ at the same time as the other RFQ?
I mean, we could, it doesn't matter when we release it, but we won't need to release it as early. We may as well hold off a little while. Yeah. So I don't have the other one.
Dates of the other ones.
The other one ends
Add 1 month
March,
to everything?
March 6th. And then it goes to the town council, I'm assuming March 14th, so it could start mid-March, whatever that first meeting is.
So, yeah,
Releasing the
so
RFQ once we're good with it is like nothing for us to do, right? So it'd be like 2 weeks for that. For them to be due.
Yeah, just offset everything by 2 weeks.
yeah, so we're interviewing here the week of February 27th. So we could take this whole schedule and just push it so that we end up interviewing for the owner's rep either the next week or the week after that.
The week of the 13th.
We have meetings on the second and fourth
Yeah,
Thursday, so the
March
16th.
14th. On March 16th.
Yeah, so we would have a meeting on the 16th. So if we did interviews that week of the 14th.
And when's the council meeting?
We wouldn't make the March council meeting. It's, it's was it second Wednesday? The town
Second
council?
Tuesday.
Second Tuesday.
So why don't we give ourselves a little breathing?
So this is, end up going to the council in April.
April 12th, April 11th.
Yeah,
Right.
that's one thing is like work backwards from that day, just back off in 2 weeks or whatever.
So we can actually do interviews the week of the 27th of March.
So what is the Friday before the April 11th meeting? That would be the 7th.
Before the town council, that would be the 7th.
Right, so we would have to have a recommendation to the town council on the 7th.
Interviews could all be the week before that.
And we can fill in the dates based on the schedule that we set up in the other one.
So interviews the week of the 27th of March, is that what you have?
That's the I could be way off on the calendar.
27th is a Monday,
Yeah, so that week
so
would be
to,
the Thursday, the 30th. But I think we're gonna need 2 days for interviews.
well, we're doing the same thing, right? Up to 4 companies. So it's same thing where we would need, a couple of days to do interviews.
At least.
We might end up only liking 3 people for both schools.
You're right. We may.
Who
We
knows?
may
yeah.
end up liking 8.
We may only have 10-minute presentations too, and no questions.
I don't think we can do all of them in one
No.
night.
Well, the presentations here were a little bit shorter, as I recall, but I forget what they said in the RFQ, but it wasn't quite as large a presentation. All right, so we'll rework those numbers, and we can bring this back at the next meeting anyway. We've got time now. Do we have any other changes that we want to make?
Yeah, just more of Roman numeral 6D.
Numeral 6, method of selection criteria.
Yeah, item D, relevant experience. Three similar projects within the past 8 years, 10 years.
Which is what we did on the other one.
Right,
Yeah.
so it should basically be the same thing.
Yep.
Sean, did you get that? Or Chuck? Chuck got it? Okay.
Thanks, Chuck.
We will bring this back at the next meeting since we
say,
got
how
time.
many years did you say?
Just one thing to keep in mind, doesn't really matter which way you go on this, but there are some owners rep spin-offs that have not been around 8 years. In other words, there's owners rep firms where the best owners reps leave and start their own business. So, they have lots of experience, but not.
Her husband were working in China for years and they've just come back to the States. So they wouldn't have any school building experience, but they were owners reps for Corning, huge manufacturing projects. So yeah, just like he says.
So what's a reasonable time frame? What would you suggest?
I'd say 5 years, it's fine, you know.
How many firms have done $40 million projects
In the last 5
in the last
years
5 years?
with the pandemic and all?
I have right now in construction, 5.
Well, we're saying
Five
within
different
the
firms.
past 8 years, right? So if they've only got 2 years' experience and they can fill up the sheet with it, it's not wrong. We're not saying it has to be an 8-year-old project.
I mean, you
Well,
can give,
what-
certainly when you come up with criteria, you could certainly give weight to how many years of experience
Yeah,
they
we
have.
just don't want stuff that they did 15 years ago. That's all. It may be meaningless at this point.
Right, that makes sense.
So then 8 seems to work then, right? Because somebody who only has 2 years, if they can still show the relevant experience, that's fine.
Right.
That still meets the
Recent-
criteria.
Recent projects that we can take a look at, that we can talk to people about. Question for you, when the actual construction is going on, is it the CM or the owner's rep who would be on site on a regular basis watching what's going on?
The CM holds the trade contract, so they're in privity with the trade contractors. They're responsible for the work. They're giving you a guaranteed maximum price. They own the subs. So the owner's rep has no jurisdiction to direct the subs to do anything. The owner's rep field responsibilities are essentially to be the owner's eyes and ears. So if there's something going on that the CM's not telling you about, you know, or there's a potential problem brewing.
Because I know, well, we had a general contractor for the project that I did, but then we hired a separate owner's rep to be on site every day and made sure that we had daily minutes of what subs were there and any problems that came up. So we had documentation of what was going on.
Yeah, the
So
CM's gonna take care of all that. They're gonna do daily reports and they're gonna have a sign-in log in the field office and all that stuff. The owner's rep is really kind of there to flag issues. You know, tell us if the schedule's accurate.
okay. Because I was questioning on, this is what, number 9B, the third bullet down, says the design firm selectively required to provide periodic project observation, construction, administrative services weekly. So I didn't know if weekly was enough or if we, but if the CM's going to be doing daily reports of what subs are there, any issues, that we've got that covered. That's my main concern.
The question that you asked is a very good question because different owners have different feelings about an owner's rep's presence in the field. I think the owner's rep needs to be present. And there's things that happen on projects. There's defective work that gets accepted by the design team and the CM. There's lack of coordination between trades. There's out of sequence work. There's all kinds of things that happen where you need the owner's rep to advise you. And if the owner's rep isn't present in the field and doesn't know these things are going on, the advice is pretty much useless. So I think it's important. I know a lot of owners don't think that. They say, oh no, we have too many people in the field already. We don't need another person. There's a deterrent, is the word I would use, that comes with having an owner's rep who's not in privity with the subs and therefore isn't loyal to the subs and is only loyal to the owner, having a presence in the field office, listening and seeing what's going on, as well as walking the job a couple times a week and being seen. It shouldn't work that way. A lot of building committees are resistant to hiring an owner's rep because they'll look at me and think I'm crazy, saying, we've got an architect, we've got a construction manager. You're saying we need to pay someone to watch the architect and the construction manager? My response is, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. I
Okay,
agree.
because it's a best practice. And in some states, it's actually the law. Connecticut, we're behind everybody and everything anyway. But, the owner's rep concept is finally being somewhat embraced by OSCGR because they realize that, building committees are made up of volunteers. And in many cases, they changed the statute a couple of years ago to require at least one person with construction industry experience on a building committee receiving a state grant. But in many communities, there's nobody on the building committee that has any experience building anything. And if you don't have an owner's rep, forget it. You're lost.
And architects often come in once a week, look around, leave. That's why we felt that we needed somebody there every single day watching what was going on. And we had a couple projects in my school district that things went wrong, and because there wasn't anybody closely watching.
Yeah, you'll see when you do the RFP and I give you a contract for an owner's rep, there's not going to be a lot of owners also worry about duplication of effort or conflicts. Okay, when you hire professionals, everybody works collaboratively as a team. And I can give you a list of projects that I've been involved in where the team worked very well together and a few where the team didn't work well together. And, one of the issues that you get into when you hire an owner's rep is some of the construction management firms also submit proposals to be an owner's rep. Now, the interesting thing about these two projects, is you're doing it in the unusual sequence. You're looking to hire an owner's rep before you hire a CM. So if I'm a CM and I submit a proposal to be a CM and I don't get it, then fine, I'm going to go submit a proposal to be your owner's rep. But since you're hiring the owner's rep first, if I'm a CM, I'm not submitting a proposal. I want to be the CM. So that could somewhat limit who you get in terms of respondents to your RFQ and your RFP. But, you know, some of the CMs don't like the owner's rep concept at all because they feel like, you know, there's
Somebody watching.
competition,
Yeah.
right? Because you could have, I've had projects where the CM is the owner's rep, the CM firm is the owner's rep, and then they take over the project because the actual CM defaults. And, you know, we have a lot of finger pointing that happens in those scenarios because they feel like the owner's rep was looking to replace them all along. But, you know, it's, if you do your job, it's not an issue.
Okay. Do we have any other issues with us at this point? Like I said, I'll put it back on the agenda for next meeting.
Yeah. Roman numeral 8. At the end of the first paragraph. And then going back to the bait and switch. Attendance to the presentation will be limited to respondent staff that will be actively involved in the project.
Say that again, limited to what?
Will be limited to the respondent staff that will be actively involved in the project.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Mhm.
One of the things that the committee needs to address pretty early on is whether, and I don't know whether anybody has any background with this, so we could, if you want, put it on a future agenda, but is whether there's any interest in using a project labor agreement for the projects. Because if there is, then that should be decided before you do the RFQ and RFP for the construction manager.
Could you describe what that is?
Yeah, project labor agreement is a contract that gets entered into between the construction manager and the, in this case, it would be the Building Trades Council, the New Haven Building Trades Council, essentially requiring that any trade contractor on the project be a signatory to the project labor agreement. So project labor agreements are used on larger projects to ensure essentially union contractors. And, you know, there's pros and cons to project labor agreements, but it's just something I throw out there as an early discussion item, kind of a long lead item if you wanted to go down that road, because it affects the construction managers. Some construction managers don't want to work on jobs with PLAs.
Any other items here?
Do we need to discuss PLA, or is that even something for us to discuss?
What's that?
The PLA, is that even an item for this committee?
Well, it's an item for future.
But that involves money, so is that us or is that council? Right?
Well, it's you, because it's part of the project delivery method.
That would be subject to executive session. It's a contract.
No, it's a public discussion.
And you suggested doing that around the time that we finalize the contract man, or the construction manager?
I think
Before you
do the
do the RFP, and probably before the RFQ, because if you make the decision that you want to use a PLA on one or both projects, you should put that in the procurement documents for the construction manager,
All right, so
because it'll affect their general conditions somewhat, because they need to ensure compliance with the PLA.
And what do we gain by doing that?
You know, on larger projects, I can tell you my experience has been that you need access to, for some trades, large numbers of skilled personnel, and having the ability to go to a building trades council and set uniform schedules and uniform holidays and uniform work rules and uniform work hours for all the trades that would be signatories to the PLA, and having the ability when you're having manpower issues to say, hey, they need some help off the bench. There's been a number of projects that I've been in. I mean, PLAs don't in and of themselves determine whether a project is successful or not, but they do give you access to the Building Trades Council so that if you're having an issue with a subcontractor or a particular trade is having a difficult time getting manpower, there's the union hiring hall available. So,
But at a cost.
that's a big, you could get the PLA folks that would come in here, the Building Trades Council folks, and say that there's no additional cost. And then you could get the ABC lobby to come in and give you all these numbers about the additional costs. The bottom line is that you don't know, unless you build the same project at the same time with a PLA and without a PLA, you can't say, nobody can say that there's a greater cost, because it ultimately comes down to whether or not the project is built on time and correctly. So if you look at the upfront costs, right, then typically you're going to have higher bids on bid day if you use a PLA, because you're going to restrict the competition for bidding. But then again, if you have contractors that fall behind schedule or aren't able to get a sufficient number of bids, ultimately I think it's very difficult to say that a PLA costs more than not having a PLA. I can give you projects, I can tell you right now, okay, examples of projects where if we didn't have a PLA and we didn't have the Building Trades Council available, the job wouldn't have been done on time.
So you're saying without the PLA, the subcontractor who, for whatever reason, has a manpower issue, they can't go to they can't get the go to the labor hall and.
If they're a union contractor, sure they can.
So we're not precluding union contractors.
Not at all.
They might still win the bid, and might still have all that.
Absolutely.
And as far as missing deadlines, that really has nothing, in my mind, unless I misunderstood you. Whether we have a PLA or not, if they're missing deadlines, that's their problem, right? If they accept the contract and the deadlines in the contract, right? Isn't that the CM's responsibility to make sure
The CM's at risk.
the schedule?
The CM's at risk for the schedule, and you'll have performance bonds from the CM and the subs, but ultimately getting the project done is your problem. Legally, it's the CM's problem.
But we are
Logistically, it's your problem.
we are in a really difficult time right now in terms of getting trades people, right? Everyone is overbooked, so I think that is a real concern.
I'm not advocating for or against it. I'm just throwing it out there as a long lead item that you may want to have a discussion about at some
I'll
point,
put it back
if
on
there's
the
any
agenda.
interest in it.
Okay. If we have nothing else on this, we're gonna bring it back up at our next meeting. We'll have a cleaner copy at that point with the new dates. Any other issues? Anything else you want on a future agenda?
Can we just ask, I'm sorry, Dennis, point of clarification about the times of our meetings? We've been holding them obviously at 7:00. Is there a recommendation to, is there a general consensus maybe to keep that, modify it in any way? Are we okay at 7?
7 works for me. I'm fine with it. That'd be a discussion as well, but I'm fine with it.
Then we will keep it at 7.
Thanks.
Dennis, you had something?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could add a public comment to the agenda.
I will put that on. Okay, if we have nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.